Javi, ¿qué pasa? No me lo puedo creer.
Espectacular incendio ha arrasado la fábrica de CAMPOFRÍO en Burgos.
Y nos tuvo que pasar.
Ha comenzado pasadas las 6:30.
Parecía que íbamos a salir del año ilesos, pero no.
Y en unos segundos ha desaparecido, te ha desaparecido toda nuestra vida.
Sucede cuando menos te lo esperas. Es de repente, ¡zas!, todo se te viene abajo. Pero solo hay que mirar un poco más allá para darse cuenta de que tu dolor no es el único. Porque este año a todos se nos ha quemado algo.
Los afectados por las participaciones preferentes de la comarca toledana...
A nosotros se nos ha quemado la paciencia.
A nosotros se nos ha quemado el futuro, porque vamos a desaparecer.
A nosotros se nos ha quemado la esperanza.
Se nos está quemando el arte.
A nosotras se nos quemó la confianza.
Caos de corrupción.
Y todos estamos quemados por lo mismo.
Pero la vida es lo que tiene, que también te demuestra que ni en esas estás solo.
Buenos días, aquí la bombería, dígame. Sí, uy, se han manifestado muchas familias y han parado eso, sí. Gracias. Cataluña, uy, eso está que arde.
Chus, este es un fuego muy delicado. Que se encargue Chiquito.
¡Nos lo estén llamando Arturo! ¡Arturo Marrey!
Y es que en este país nos hemos dado cuenta de que tenemos algo a prueba de fuego.
Lo del desahucio ya está arreglado, pero falta mucho apoyo, ¿eh? Sí.
Es la enorme capacidad de apoyar siempre a quien tienes al lado.
Venimos a ayudar, ¿se puede?
¿Ayudar? Claro que se puede. Aquí hay fuego para todos.
Porque el sentido del humor y las ganas de salir adelante, eso no nos lo quema nadie.
¡Un momento!
Jefe, solo faltaba usted.
¿Usted qué nota? Como mucho humo y huele a chamusquina. Sí, eso va a ser un incendio. No se preocupe que vamos. Bueno, de todas maneras, si usted tiene que salir, nos deja la llave debajo del felpudo. Bueno, para no andar perdiendo tiempo, ¿qué autobús tengo que coger?
Buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. And first of all, thanks very much to CAMPOFRÍO for inviting us to be here at this great event and to be able to share with you our modest learnings after a tragedy that we experienced in November last year, on November 16th, which meant that we had to manage a situation of crisis, of uncertainty, with a lot of business challenges. But all of a sudden, from one day to the next, all those business challenges turned into a crisis. But with an attitude that's reflected in this video that I wanted to start the presentation with, that shows our spirit at CAMPOFRÍO Food Group. Nobody can change the way we cope with life challenges and the business. And I'll start by explaining what happened on November 16, when at 6:30 a.m. my colleague Nacho González, CEO for Spain, called me up to tell me that there was a fire in Burgos as coordinator of the crisis committee. We didn't know the scale of the tragedy then, and our first concern, obviously, was to find out whether there was any human damage, whether there were any employees, staff that had been affected. And we quickly realized that the thing was getting out of hand, and we brought in the action protocols, which are the protocols that all companies define and all executive members keep very carefully in some folders in a drawer. And all of a sudden, it's better to have them updated, memorized, and with a proper understanding of what needs to be done, because the speed of the events means that you often have to make a decision first and then think. We activated the Global Crisis Committee at the company, and as an anecdote, I'll say that we had redefined our situation as a result of a crisis at our Italian company at Ferrucci, and in the minutes of the last executive committee, where the training plan was submitted, it was stated that the crisis committees were established and that we would have a drill. So when I called up to our CEO, he said, since Remy is from Bilbao, she hasn't bothered with a drill. She's put us directly into the crisis. Well, at the executive committee, we activated all the functional crises committees we had at the company for personnel, the supply chain, and the communication side. Communications is one of the issues I'll also mention because we were somewhat overwhelmed by the impact of the news in the media, and we started to manage things following the procedures and looking at what the decisions were, what was being done and what wasn't, in order to subsequently analyze all the decisions and consequences. This slide is more or less the index for the presentation I'm going to share with you. We have all the issues we dealt with starting on that Sunday, November the 16th. Everything related with the fire. We had a significant crisis because we had some ammonia tanks. If the fire had reached them, it was said that the city of Burgos would have to be evacuated. The employees, the impact, as you saw, for them was tremendous. At La Bureba plant, there are or will be 1,000 people employed. Then we have the issue of solidarity. The response was impressive on a national and international level. Communications, of course, insurance, the supply chain, and of course the sales and distribution. From one day to the next, 60,000 tons are burned. In a specific range of baked products, and we had to immediately respond to the market, otherwise we would be wiped out. To put the magnitude of the incident into perspective with some figures, at La Bureba plant, as I said, there were 1,000 employees. Next to La Bureba plant, we have another plant called Jamones Burgaleses, where there are another 300 people. And at the time of the fire in November, as you can imagine, just before the Christmas campaign, we had over 1.5 million pieces of ham in stock. Regarding volume, what was burnt at La Bureba plant represents 30% of Spain's volume. It represents 37% of sales, 50% of the gross profit. And if we look at the pieces, over 6.4 million cooked pieces, plus 16 million of what we call minis, and over 121 million sliced packs. As you can see, the figures leave you completely in a state of shock. If we look at the various angles we had to manage, the first was, of course, the fire. The fire took a week to be put out, and during the first few hours or first days, there was a great deal of danger, as I said, of the fire having an impact not only on the plant facilities, but even on the city of Burgos. Fortunately, it was Sunday morning. Only 25 employees were working at the time, and there was no personal damage that we had to manage. The people there, the employees, the fact is that they responded exceptionally well. They were an example. They tried, together with the Burgos firemen, they tried to save as much as possible. And as I said, we focused on protecting the ammonium tanks and protecting the Jamones Burgaleses plant to at least be able to save the production and business on that side. Once the fire was put out, we started with the demolition, which we finished just a few weeks ago. The La Bureba plant is around 70,000 square meters. So the demolition process, once that the scientific police were there taking all the necessary information, they gave us permission to continue with the demolition. And it's taken 3-4 months to carry out all the work. Jamones burgaleses we managed to save. And although we've had some traceability issues with some of the products stored there, to determine what the impact was of having no electricity or gas supply for 4 days, what effect this may have had on the products. From the point of view of the employees, and this is something that particularly concerns me, the response starting on that very Sunday was not to do the easy thing, but to do what needed to be done. That is to come out immediately and say that the company was going to be rebuilt, that the factory was going to be rebuilt in Burgos, and that we undertook to keep the jobs. CAMPOFRÍO Food Group and the Executive Committee had previously established a 3-year strategic plan. A 3-year strategic plan that makes all the business sense in the world. And we were committed to keeping to it. The fire at the Burela plant was an accident, an incident that would unquestionably have an impact. We would have to manage it and would delay some of the business figures. But we were absolutely convinced that the company business plan was what it should be, and we were going to continue to make the necessary decisions so that that business plan would be successful and would end the way it should. So all the production, all the know-how of our employees was obviously very valuable to us. In 48 hours, we presented the application to suspend employment. As you know, the administration allows you to suspend the employment or to dismiss the employees with compensation. But we decided not to do the easy thing, but to do what is in line with the values of the company. That is not to lay anybody off. 120 of the staff, because of the roles they had at the plant, didn't need to be temporarily suspended. So we initially only suspended 600 and some people, and they are currently working in other plants at Torrente, in Olvaga, and another 2 plants in Burgos. We opened an employee support office to answer any possible queries. And 8 people from the human resources team provided that service. We signed a social agreement with them on December 11th. Everything happened very quickly. This was also one of the main discussions we had. The CAMPOFRÍO Christmas campaign, and I hope you all recognize this, is one of the campaigns that people look forward to at Christmas time. People wonder what will CAMPOFRÍO do this year. And, you know, we focus more on the emotional side, on the engagement with the Spain brand and the values of the company. So we were discussing, what are we going to do this year? The campaign we had was cancelled. Shall we come out? Shouldn't we come out? If we do, what should the message be? To what extent can you use humor? To what extent do we have to represent the tragedy we're going through? And we decided to continue with our company DNA. We're going to come out, and we're going to come out with our slogan that nobody's going to change the way we are. We wanted to shoot it in Burgos, but it wasn't possible to shoot it if we didn't sign the social agreement with the trade unions to avoid any kind of problem. We signed it on a Thursday at 11 p.m. and on Friday at 8:30 a.m. we started to shoot. So again, very quick decisions and with incredible teamwork mobilized around the executive committee and the rest of the layers in the company, because the speed of all the events was enormous. The employees had an extraordinary response, and we also worked with the administration, both the central administration with the Ministry of Labour and with the government of Castile and Leon, and we had a favorable response from both. And we even changed some inconsistencies that we had in the legislation in this country, where we were offered aid to lay off staff, considering the unemployment rate that Alfredo explained earlier, but we weren't offered aid to temporarily suspend employment. And technically, when employment is suspended, the company has to pay for the cost of social security, which in our case was 11 million euros in broken down P&L after a fire like this. And maintaining a manpower cost of 11 million euros without having the productivity of the employees is something difficult to take on board. We managed to get the Council of Ministers in the last December meeting to approve what's known as the CAMPOFRÍO decree, whereby companies facing a similar situation, a force majeure or a natural catastrophe, that commit to reinvesting can apply for the exemption of those social security fees. And as you can imagine, we did that immediately. There was enormous solidarity, and this is a characteristic of this country, I think. We received solidarity from many companies, from the city of Burgos, and of course from the rest of the companies that make up the CAMPOFRÍO food group. And for those of you that don't know the CAMPOFRÍO food group so well and are more familiarized with CAMPOFRÍO Spain is one of the companies that makes up the group. We have another 11 groups in France, in Italy, in Holland, in Belgium, in the United States, in Portugal, and in Germany. All of them set up a zero line where they made contributions for the employees affected. And unfortunately, Spain confused, or United States confused Spain with Real Madrid. And that's why they're wearing the Real Madrid scarf in the picture. What can we do? From the point of view of communication, which is another important aspect to be managed in this kind of crisis, because you may have a fantastic management of the fire, a fantastic management of the insurance issues, a magnificent management of many things. But if the customer or the consumer doesn't perceive it properly, it can cause a lot of damage. Here we decided to focus all the communication from the point of view of the brand values. CAMPOFRÍO is a brand that has its own identity. It's identified with a number of values. And as you can see, we came out immediately from that emotional point of view to express our gratitude for all the solidarity we have received, and of course to try to reinforce our brand image, even without a product. And that's a very interesting aspect that I assume will be analyzed at some business schools, how you can keep a brand alive when you don't have a product on the shelf. But it was important to do it, because otherwise, when we came back, we would no longer exist. Our strategy proactively with the media was quite low profile. We didn't want to use too many initiatives, although it's true that we were overwhelmed, because during the first months we were constantly in the news, on television, on the radio, with interviews of employees, the Works Committee, consumers, so it was difficult to control. That's why it was very important for all the variables that need to be managed in a crisis management. Use a keyword that I love, not just from the business point of view, but also from a personal point of view, coherence or consistency. If you say that you define yourself as a company through a number of values, you have to behave according to those values. And often we see that there's quite a lot of inconsistency because we have a lot of values, but then we behave differently. If you have that consistency and you apply it to everything you do, you can more or less control in a positive way all these impacts that we had in the press.
And a very important focus has to do with the social networks and this environment in which we live, where there's a flow of information, a very rapid flow of information. It was necessary to have a very significant focus and see what was going on brand-wise in all of these tweets, which at a breakneck speed were propagating all over the social networks. And as you can see here, there was a positive feeling that grew tremendously as the days and the weeks went by, and as a function of how the company was managing the crisis. From the internal communication point of view, exactly the same thing. There was a big concern amongst the 11,000 workers that form part of the CAMPOFRÍO group in Spain and other countries. There was a very big concern. And there was a big concern because our factory was the most important of the 32 plants we have in operation in Europe and the United States. Because everybody was aware of the fact that if we were not able to manage this crisis in a suitable manner, the impact in Spain, without a doubt, was going to have a repercussion in other countries and in other companies of the group. So at CAMPOFRÍO, we've undergone a very significant transformation process because we had the merger in 2009 when CAMPOFRÍO España merged with another firm to become an international company, in other words, a company with presence in many countries. And 3 years ago, it became a multinational company where synergies and where the integration capability and the sharing of knowledge and expertise and processes has made us much more strong. And now we are in a leadership position in Spain as far as meat processing goes. So this is why this new context, when you have the strength of a multinational and you don't have independent companies operating in different countries, the reaction was much quicker and much more agile. But in any case, we had to manage that communication properly for all our workforce in all the countries. We set up a meeting point on the intranet where we provided all the information that was related to what was going on at the whatever factory, all the actions that had been implemented, and we spent lots of time on holding meetings with workers to explain to them what was going on so that information could reach them from us before through other sources. And because we believe that each interaction is significant, and we have lots of workers, and they have lots of interactions, and they are wonderful ambassadors for what the company looks like. And then we have insurance. Well, this is possibly the most interesting aspect for this public that I'm speaking to. And it's the first time for me that I had to manage a claim of this kind. I think that there are not that many people have had this opportunity, between inverted commas, which is what we've had to experience. But I can say is that having a solid structure as regards insurance coverage is something that, well, just like crisis protocols, we believe it's something that we should have, but perhaps you never consider that it is that important until you have that experience, and it's a vital variable in order to manage a situation of this kind. And La Bureba crisis activated practically all the insurance policies we had. Obviously, the damage policy, and we're here with our hosts, MAPFRE. They behaved wonderfully well in our actions with them, and also with IFEM, that had the civil liability policy and the environmental liability policy, but in any case, we activated all our policies. And we had to manage in a global fashion all the impacts that this was having. And in the first meetings we held with IFM and MAPFRE, I remember one of the sentences that somebody mentioned. And we were under lots of pressure, and we didn't really know what to do. And the first thing somebody said is that we are here for situations of this kind, otherwise we wouldn't make any sense. So you have our fullest support so that your company can go back to what it was like prior to this accident. And the truth is that it's something that it's very comforting, because at the end of the day, coverage and solidity and a partnership response when you're dealing with such a complex situation like this, and when you are dealing with so many variables, makes you feel completely calm, and it motivates you to continue. And without a doubt, this is a path that we're still covering with rigor and with professionalism as regards all the people involved. And I think that for the time being, we are in a satisfactory situation, and I believe that it will be possible to reach a very suitable solution, adequate for all. And then, as far as production goes, well, one of the first concerns we had, well, I've said this 7 times, but one of the first concerns, well, everything was a concern, so I'm not going to repeat this again. But it was, where were we supposed to place the production of 60,000 tons? Because we had to get back into the market, because if we didn't get back into the market, we knew that we were going to vanish. So we then looked into where we had production capabilities, first within the group, and here we found possibilities in the plants of Spain, in Ordogan Torrente. We took some production to Portugal and Italy and Belgium. And then, well, we had to resort to the competition. And not everybody offered their help, but many of them did. And obviously, the cost structure that they proposed was very difficult to cope with. But in any case, we had to take it on board, because we have to be in the market. Our products, our wonderful breast of turkey, our wonderful cooked ham, and there's not another one as good as ours. And I suppose that I can put some advertisements here too, can't I, Alfredo? But if you're loyal to a brand, and if you don't see it for 5 days, on day 6 you buy the competition's brand, and I can tell you that the taste is going to be completely different. But by day 2 you eat it again, and on day 3 again, and that's it. That's the end of CAMPOFRÍO. So it's not like these luxury brands. And if you like a watch of a certain brand, and perhaps you can't buy it because you cannot afford it, but when you buy it, you have it there as a treasure. So we had to go back into the markets and the supermarkets. And this is one of the major concerns we had. And right now we have 98% of our products placed. We have simplified the number of references a lot, and we've had to accept new formats which for us were very distinctive in the market. And here you can see our, what we call York ham. Well, now it's round. It was a different shape before. And we had to go back into the market with whatever the competition offered us, with the cost structure that the competition offered, and obviously with the format that they also offered, although with our formula and with our quality standards, which means that we had to multiply by 3 our efforts as regards performing controls at 20 plants where these products are manufactured that used to be manufactured at only 1. And of course, all of this scale of costs is one of our biggest concerns, because you have the logistics and transportation, production, and the additional cost of controlling quality in production. Well, this is a very, very complex business. But in any case, we are there. We're back again in the markets and the supermarkets. And this is a picture that produces a very big impact before the fire. Well, we had something like 12 references at any supermarket and 17 facings. And then we ended up only having 3, and this is where we are working now, on the right-hand side. So there's competition that paid a listing fee. In other words, they've paid for our space, and it's very difficult to get it back. But this is how tragic it is, because you're not back in 24 hours from one day to the next. And this is... Well, we had 16 kilometers of shelf space, and we ended up with only 1.5. So these are the data, the market share data. No, sorry. Yes, the market share and the value share and brand share, and that's what the situation was like.
Únicamente mantuvimos todo lo que era la parte de share of voice, de nuestra presencia en medios, donde hay, bueno, pues todo lo que es...
And we were present in the media, and let's say that the management of the crisis produced a pretty significant impact in the mass media, and we received lots of social coverage. So we had to develop a commercial plan, a very aggressive commercial or marketing plan. Our objective is to recover our market share by June of 2015. In other words, exactly the same thing we had in November 2014, and that's what we're currently working on. And for that purpose, well, we'd had to draw up an individualized commercial plan per customer. We've had to carry out promotions, and we also had to invent and reinvent new ways of recovering shelf space at all the SKUs in all the products and references, and that's what we're doing. It's a very complex struggle, and we held a commercial convention in January in order to make the sales force aware of the targets that had to be achieved, and we're working on this so that we can achieve this goal by June. And if you ask how things going, Remedios, I'd say, well, we're going well. We're optimistic, but let's say that the final stretch of the race is the most difficult part, as you all know, and that's what we're now about to enter. But as regards our consumers, we also developed a number of marketing strategies to tell them that we were not there, but we were going to come back so that they could remember us. And so that, once again, going back to what I said about how you manage a crisis, if from the point of view of communication and the workforce, or how do you manage this from the point of view of the fire itself, if people have a positive memory, when they see the CAMPOFRÍO packages again, they say, oh, look, they've come back, and they buy it. But if you do not manage the crisis in that manner, when they see the CAMPOFRÍO package, they say, oh, these people, well, I'm going to continue with the new product because it's not that bad either. But it's very important during these processes to have it very clear in your mind that each one of the impacts and each one of the management actions you have to perform is going to have a repercussion. And this is, well, the philosophy that we've been using. We've focused on what happened in other tragedies much worse than ours, of course. But we are totally convinced as a company that we are going to try to pull through this, not only in a reasonable manner, but what we want to do is be much stronger. So with that conviction and that attitude is our basis for the work we're doing. And all of the initiatives we're carrying out right now are so that we can be there and so that we can be the CAMPOFRÍO we were like before the fire, or even stronger than before. So situations of this kind, which are difficult to cope with, that are very difficult to coexist with, well, you have to take them as if it were an opportunity. And in that regard, one has to work very hard. One has to be aware of what sort of company target you're trying to achieve, and you have to focus all your efforts properly. So at this point in time, we are not trying to benefit from any kind of situation, but rather all we want to do is go back to the business plan that we had before the fire broke out. And in that certainty and with that conviction, that is what allows us to carry on forging ahead. And in one of the newspapers, there was a very funny cartoon, and they said, well, many things had burnt down to the ground, but not our enthusiasm nor our wish to come back. So with this enthusiasm and this wish to come back, this is our main element for our work. Thank you very much, and I hope that this lesson from CAMPOFRÍO has been useful for you and your own experiences.